The cowboy didn't slow his horse when he saw her in the dark. So why did he stop when she said just 6 quiet words? The wind snaps against the broken fence as she grips a worn leather bag, knuckles pale, breath shaking in the cold. A horse exhales steam beside her. Boots hit the dirt. He studies her once, says nothing. Then she whispers, barely louder than the wind, "I have nowhere left to go." And something in his expression shifts, but not the way you'd expect. What did he see in that moment? Stay with me to find out. The wind came down hard through Red Hollow that night, carrying dust that stung the eyes and crept into every crack of wood and bone. It rattled the loose boards of the boarding house and sent the hanging sign creaking back and forth like it might snap clean off. Folks moved quicker in weather like that. Doors shut sooner. Lamps burned low. Nora Whitfield stood on the top step just long enough to hear the bolt slide into place behind her. Her valise hit the wood a second later. Not thrown hard, just enough to make the point. It tipped on its side, one latch half broken, a corner of folded cloth showing through. "You best find somewhere else, Ratsuma," the woman inside had said. No anger. Just done. Nora picked up the bag. The leather was worn thin where her fingers always found it. She didn't knock again. She went first to the general store, light still in the window. The bell above the door gave a tired jingle when she pushed in. A man behind the counter looked up, then past her, like someone else might be following. "I can pay by the week," she said. "Sweep, stack, whatever needs doing." He wiped his hands on a rag and set it down slow. "We're closed." "I don't need the front room. Just a corner. I'll be out before—" "We're closed," he said again, softer this time, but firmer. She nodded once, left before he had to say anything else. 2 more doors, same look, same pause, same ending. By the time she reached the far end of the street, the lamps had gone out one by one. The saloon still breathed light and sound, but no one standing in that doorway was looking for a stranger to help. Nora kept walking, past the last house, past the fence line where the town gave up and the open land took over. The ground turned uneven, packed dirt and scattered stone. A narrow shed leaned beside an old corral, half the rails missing. She set the valise down under the overhang and sat with her back to the rough boards. The wood held a little of the day's warmth, but not much. She pulled her shawl tighter, tucking her hands under her arms. Her breath came out white. Somewhere in the dark, a loose hinge knocked in the wind. A horse shifted its weight in a nearby pen, the soft thud of a hoof on dirt. Otherwise, nothing. She didn't cry. Not yet. There wasn't room for it. Not with the cold settling in. She closed her eyes for a moment, opened them again when the sound reached her. Hoofbeats. Slow. Not passing through. Coming closer. The horse stopped a few yards off. Leather creaked. A man shifted in the saddle, looking down at her like he was trying to make sense of what he was seeing. He didn't speak right away. Neither did she. The wind pushed between them, carrying dust and the faint smell of pine from somewhere up the ridge. He swung down from the horse in one steady motion. Tall, broad through the shoulders, coat worn but kept. He tied the reins to a broken post without taking his eyes off her. "You been sitting there long?" he asked. His voice was low, not sharp, not soft either, just plain. Nora wet her lips. They felt cracked. "A while," she said. He looked toward the town, then back at her. Took in the bag, the way she held herself ready to stand if she had to. "No room left in Red Hollow tonight?" he asked. She let out a breath that wasn't quite a laugh. "No room for me," she said. He nodded once, like that answered more than the words themselves. The wind picked up again, lifting the edge of her shawl. She caught it with one hand, holding it close. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then something in her gave just enough to let the truth out. "I have nowhere left to go," she said, quiet as the dust settling around them. He didn't ask why. Didn't ask where she came from. Didn't ask what she'd done. He stepped closer, boots crunching on the dirt, and stopped just far enough not to crowd her. "Then come home with me," he said. Just that. No promise tied to it. No condition laid out after. Nora looked at him. Really looked this time. The lines at the corners of his eyes. The way he stood like he had nowhere else he needed to be, but wasn't going to reach for her either. The horse snorted softly behind him, steam rising in the cold. "You don't know me," she said. "Don't need to," he answered. She glanced past him, back toward the town. Dark now, quiet, nothing there calling her back. The wind pushed again, colder this time. He waited. Didn't move. Didn't press. After a long second, he turned slightly, as if he might head back to the saddle. "Suit yourself," he said. Nora's fingers tightened on the handle of her valise. The hinge knocked again in the dark. She pushed herself up, slower than she meant to, legs stiff from the cold. The world tilted just a little before it steadied. "Where is it?" she asked. He looked back at her over his shoulder. "North Ridge," he said. "Couple miles past the creek." She nodded once. He untied the reins and swung up, then reached down without looking at her directly. "Foot'll slip on that stirrup if you don't watch it," he said. She hesitated, then set her hand in his. His grip was firm, steady, nothing more than what was needed. He helped her up behind the saddle, then let go as soon as she found her balance. They didn't speak again. The horse turned, heading out of Red Hollow, leaving the last of its lights behind. Ahead, the dark stretched wide and open. Nora held the back of the saddle, not quite touching him, her bag resting against her knee. The wind cut across the land, but it didn't feel the same as before. Not as empty. Not as final. They rode on. The wind followed them out past the last fence of Red Hollow, but it lost some of its bite once they climbed into the rise north of town. The land opened up, rolling and uneven, scattered with scrub and low pine. The moon came and went behind thin clouds, just enough light to show the trail if you knew where to look. Nora didn't ask questions. She held steady behind the saddle, one hand on the worn leather, the other gripping her bag. The horse moved sure-footed over the ground, like it had done this road 100 times before. After a while, she noticed the smell change. Less dust, more wood. Pine, maybe. Something colder. "Creek's up ahead," the man said without turning. "Water runs shallow this time of year." She nodded, though he couldn't see it. They crossed it slow. The horse stepped through with a soft splash, water dark and quiet under the night sky. On the other side, the trail angled upward. A fence line came into view. Rough posts, wire pulled tight in some places, sagging in others. Then the house. It sat a little back from the path, tucked against a rise of rock and brush. Not large, just a single-story place with a narrow porch and a roof that had been patched more than once. A lantern hung near the door, turned low but still burning. He brought the horse to a stop. "That's it," he said. Nora slid down carefully, boots hitting dirt that felt firmer than the road behind them. Her legs held, though they felt like they might not. She straightened, brushing dust from her skirt without thinking. He untied a second horse from a short rail near the porch and looped the reins over. Movements simple. Practiced. "Name's Wyatt," he said, almost as an afterthought. "Wyatt Callahan." She hesitated, then nodded once. "Nora." He didn't ask for more. The door opened with a low creak. Warm air met them, carrying the smell of coffee long gone cold, and wood smoke settled into the walls. Inside, everything was in its place. A table near the window, 2 chairs, one pushed in, one slightly off like it had been used earlier and never corrected. A stove in the corner, iron dark and quiet now. No clutter, no softness either. Wyatt stepped aside, giving her space to enter first. Nora paused at the threshold, then stepped in. He closed the door behind them, the latch falling into place with a solid click. "There's a room off the back," he said, setting his hat on a peg by the door. "Bed's made. It's clean." She followed his gesture. A narrow hallway led to a small door. She didn't move yet. "You don't have to stay," he added. "Come morning, you can head wherever you need." The words sat between them. Not unkind. Not warm either. Just true. Nora set her bag down by the wall, close enough to reach if she needed to. "I understand," she said. He gave a short nod, crossed the room and poured what was left in a tin pot into 2 cups. One he set near her on the table. The other he took for himself. "It's not fresh," he said, "but it'll warm you." She stepped closer, wrapped her hands around the cup. The metal was warm enough to sting at first. She didn't let go. They ate a little after that. Beans from a small pot he set back on the stove, reheated slow. A piece of bread cut in half without ceremony. The sound of the spoon against the bowl filled the room more than any conversation. Nora kept her chair angled, just enough to see both the door and the hallway. A habit she didn't explain. Wyatt noticed, said nothing. When the food was gone, she stood first. "I'll take the room," she said. He nodded toward the back. "Door sticks a bit. Lift it when you push." She picked up her bag and walked down the narrow hall. The door did stick. She lifted it like he said. It opened with a low scrape. The room was small. Bed against one wall, a folded blanket at the foot, a basin on a stand with a pitcher half full, a single window, shuttered. She stepped inside and set her bag down near the bed. Behind her, the house settled. A quiet shift of wood and beam. Then silence. Nora sat on the edge of the mattress, tested it once with her hand. Firm. Real. She didn't lie down right away. Instead, she listened. No footsteps coming toward her. No voice calling her back out. Just the faint sound of Wyatt moving in the main room. A chair pulled. Then stillness. After a while, she lay back, fully dressed, one hand resting on her bag. Sleep came in pieces. When she woke, the light had already changed. Morning. Pale sunlight pushed through the edges of the shutter. The house felt different. Lighter somehow. She sat up quick. Listened. Nothing. Nora stood and opened the door. The main room was empty. The cup from the night before washed and set upside down by the sink. The chair pushed in straight. The front door was closed, not locked. She stepped closer, touched the handle. It turned easy. Outside, the yard lay quiet under the morning sky. The horses were gone. Nora stood there for a long moment, the open door in her hand. No one watching. No one waiting. Just the road back down the ridge, or the house behind her. She let the door rest half open, did not move. The morning held still around her. No wind yet, just the faint drip of water from the eaves where frost had melted. Somewhere down the slope, a bird called once, then went quiet. Nora stepped out onto the porch. The yard looked different in daylight. What had been shadow and guesswork in the night now showed itself plain. A split rail fence running uneven along the edge. A stack of cut wood near the side wall, covered with a tarp weighted down by stones. A small shed, door hanging slightly off its hinge. Nothing wasted. Nothing extra. She walked a few steps into the yard, then stopped. The trail back toward Red Hollow cut through the brush, clear enough to follow. She could be down the ridge before noon if she kept a steady pace. Her hand shifted on the handle of her bag. Behind her, the house stood open. Quiet. Waiting or not waiting, it was hard to tell. Nora turned back inside. She set her bag down near the table this time, not by the door. The day passed in small movements. She rinsed the basin and poured the water out near the edge of the yard, found a cloth and wiped the table, though it didn't need much, folded the blanket at the foot of the bed tighter than before, the kind of work that didn't ask questions. By midday, the sound of hooves came up the trail again. Nora paused, hands still on the edge of the sink. Wyatt rode in at an easy pace, a sack tied behind the saddle. He saw her in the doorway and gave a short nod, like she had always been there. "Road held," he said, sliding down. She nodded back. "It did." He untied the sack and carried it inside, set it on the table. Flour, salt, a small packet of coffee wrapped in paper. Ordinary things. "I'll be heading into town later this week," he said. "If you need anything, write it down." Nora looked at the items, then at him. "I don't have money to trade." Wyatt shrugged once. "Didn't say you did." Silence settled again, not as tight as the night before. That afternoon, she walked the edge of the property, following the fence line where it dipped and rose with the land. One section near the back had come loose, the wire sagging low enough for a calf to slip through if there had been one. She crouched and tested the post. It wobbled. Inside the shed, she found a hammer, a handful of bent nails in a tin, and a length of spare wire coiled near the wall. She worked slow, straightening what she could, bracing the post with a rock at its base before driving the nail in. The sound carried farther than she expected. When she stood again, Wyatt was leaning against the porch rail, watching. Not close, not far either. "Didn't ask you to fix that," he said. "You didn't ask me to stay either," she answered. His mouth shifted just a little, not quite a smile. "Fair enough." The next morning they rode into Red Hollow together. He didn't offer, just saddled the second horse and left it standing near the fence. Nora took it without a word. The town looked the same. Dust, wood, people moving with purpose that didn't include them. But the air changed when they rode in. Eyes followed, not loud, not open, just there. At the general store, Wyatt tied off his horse and stepped inside. Nora followed a second later. The bell rang. The same man stood behind the counter. His gaze moved from Wyatt to Nora, then back again. "What can I get you?" he asked. Wyatt set a short list on the counter. The man gathered the items, weighed them out, wrapped them in paper. Nora stepped forward and placed 2 small coins beside the bundle of thread she had picked up. The man looked at them, then at her hand. "They'll do," he said, but he didn't touch them right away. A woman near the back shelf paused, watching. Nora left the coins where they were, waited. After a second, he took them, dropped them into the till without comment. Outside, a group of men stood near the hitching rail. One of them nodded toward Wyatt. "You taking on help now?" he said, voice easy but carrying. Wyatt didn't answer, just adjusted the strap on the sack. Nora mounted without looking over. On the way out of town, they passed a small crowd gathered near the far corral. A horse stood inside, shifting, favoring one leg. Sheriff Dalton stood by the gate, hat pushed back, talking to 2 men who looked like they had run out of ideas. Wyatt slowed his horse. "Trouble?" he called. "Threw a shoe, then took a bad step," Dalton said. "Won't let anyone near him now." The horse jerked its head, ears back, breath sharp in the cool air. Nora watched for a moment. The way the animal held its weight, the angle of the leg, the tension running through its body. She slid down before she thought too much about it. "Easy," someone muttered behind her. Nora walked to the fence. Didn't go in yet. Just stood where the horse could see her without feeling cornered. She waited. The horse stilled, just a fraction. She stepped inside then, slow, hands low, voice quieter than the wind. "That's it," she murmured, though no one asked her to. The animal shifted again, but didn't bolt. She reached for the rope hanging loose near the post, looping it careful, steady, no sudden moves. When the horse pulled back, she let it, then eased forward again. Wyatt watched from the rail, said nothing. After a long minute, Nora had the rope set, enough to keep the horse from turning wild. She crouched near the leg, eyes tracing the line of the hoof, the way it sat wrong against the ground. "Stone's caught," she said. "Not deep." Dalton frowned. "You sure?" Nora didn't answer him. She worked the edge of the hoof with the back of a small tool she pulled from her bag. Slow, careful. The horse flinched once, then settled. A small stone worked free. She stepped back, giving the animal space. It tested the leg, shifted weight, then stood more even. No one spoke. Dust moved across the ground between them. Wyatt rested his arm on the top rail and looked out over the yard. "Told you she could handle it," he said. The words landed quiet, but they stayed. Nora wiped her hands on her skirt. Didn't look up. She stepped out of the corral and walked back to her horse. The town watched. This time, no one laughed. Dust drifted low across the corral as Nora mounted her horse again. No one stopped her. No one spoke to her either. The space around her felt different now. Not open, not welcoming. Just careful. Wyatt swung into his saddle without looking at the others. He turned his horse toward the road out of town like nothing had happened. Nora followed. They rode in silence again, the kind that didn't press as hard as before. The wind had picked up by the time they reached the ridge, bending the grass in long waves. Clouds gathered low, the sky turning the color of old iron. By the time they reached the house, the first gusts were hitting hard. Wyatt tied off the horses quick, checked the latch on the barn door, then stepped back onto the porch. Nora was already inside, holding the door against the wind as it pushed in sharp and cold. He shut it behind him, setting the bar in place. The house shifted under the storm, boards creaking, the roof taking the force of it. Nora stood near the table, hands still. Her sleeve carried a faint smear of dirt from the corral. She hadn't noticed. "You handled that horse better than most men I've seen," Wyatt said, setting his hat down. She didn't answer right away. "I've seen worse," she said finally. He nodded once, like that told him enough. The storm settled in for the afternoon. Wind, then rain, hard and steady against the roof. The light dimmed early, turning the room into shadow and lamplight before its time. Nora moved about the space without asking, set water to boil, found the coffee, measured it without waste. When she handed him the cup, her fingers didn't quite touch his. He took it anyway. Late in the day, the knocking came. Not loud, not polite either. Just enough to carry through the storm. Wyatt set his cup down and moved to the door. Nora stayed where she was. When he opened it, the wind pushed in again, along with 3 men from town. Coats pulled tight, hats low. Hank Mercer stood in front. He didn't step inside. "Figured we'd find you up here," Hank said, voice raised just enough to cut through the rain. "Heard you've been bringing trouble into Red Hollow." Wyatt leaned one hand on the doorframe. "Didn't know helping a horse was trouble," he said. Hank's gaze shifted past him, landing on Nora in the dim light. "Town's talking," he said. "Saying things are changing. not all for the better. No one moved behind him, but they didn't look away either. Nora felt it. The weight of being seen and measured all over again. Different this time. Not laughter. Something colder. Wyatt didn't turn back to her. Didn't ask her to step forward. He stayed where he was, filling the doorway. "She stays," he said. Simple. Flat. Not loud. The wind caught the edge of the door, pushing it wider for a second before Wyatt held it steady again. "You got a problem," he added, eyes on Hank. "You talk to me." Hank's jaw tightened. "This isn't just your land, Callahan," he said. "You're part of this town whether you like it or not." Wyatt didn't blink. "Then the town can say what it needs," he replied. "Don't mean I have to listen." The men behind Hank shifted. One looked toward the ground. Another pulled his coat tighter. The rain came harder. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Hank gave a short breath through his nose, not quite a laugh. "You'll answer for it one way or another," he said. Wyatt didn't move. Hank stepped back, turned, and walked off into the storm. The others followed. The yard emptied. Wyatt closed the door, set the bar again. The house held quiet, except for the rain. Nora hadn't moved. He turned then, finally looking at her. She met his eyes. "Why would you do that?" she asked. No anger in it. No softness either. Just the question. Wyatt crossed the room slow, stopped near the table, not too close. "Because no one did it for me when I needed it," he said. He picked up his cup again, though the coffee had gone cold. Nora watched him, the way he stood, the way he didn't try to make it more than it was. Something shifted then, not loud, not sudden, just enough. She turned back to the stove, adding another piece of wood to the fire. Outside, the storm went on. Inside, the space between them felt smaller. By morning, the rain had thinned to a steady drip off the eaves. The ground held the night's water, dark and soft underfoot. A low fog clung to the rise beyond the fence, blurring the line between land and sky. Nora was already awake. She stood at the table, sleeves rolled, sorting through what little there was: a folded cloth, a tin cup. Her bag open beside her, its contents laid out in careful rows as if she meant to take account of every piece. Wyatt stepped out from the back room, boots quiet on the floorboards. He paused when he saw her, didn't speak. She didn't look up. For a long moment, the only sound was the slow drip outside and the faint shift of wood settling in the damp. "You heading into town?" he asked finally. Nora folded the cloth once, then again. "Thought I might," she said. "See what work there is." He nodded, walked to the stove, set water on to warm. "That road'll be rough after the rain," he said. "Take the lower path past the creek. Holds better." "I know the way," she replied. It wasn't sharp, just steady. He didn't answer that. By midday, the sky had cleared enough to show a pale stretch of blue. Nora saddled the horse without asking. Wyatt watched from the porch, leaning one shoulder against the post, hands loose at his sides. She didn't look at him when she mounted. "Be back before dark," she said. He nodded once. She rode out. Red Hollow carried the smell of wet dust when she came in. The street was quieter than usual. People moved slower, boots leaving dark prints in the softened ground. At the store, Clara Boone stood behind the counter, stacking jars. Nora stepped inside. The bell gave its tired ring again. Clara looked up. This time she didn't look away. "You needing something?" she asked. Nora set a small list on the counter. Not long, just what she could carry. Clara gathered the items, set them down one by one. "You're staying up on Callahan's place?" she asked, not unkindly. For now, Nora said. Clara nodded like she had expected that. That horse yesterday, she added, tying the bundle with twine. Dalton says it's walking clean today. Nora didn't answer, just took the bundle when it was offered. Outside, a man waited near the hitching rail, hat in his hands, older, thin. My boy's been coughing, he said, not looking at her directly. Bad these last nights. Nora shifted the bundle under her arm. Bring him by, she said. He nodded quick. Relief moved through his shoulders before he turned away. By the time she rode back, the light had gone soft. The ridge held the last of the sun, turning the rocks a dull gold. Wyatt was on the porch again. Same place. He watched her ride in, then stepped down to take the reins. You find what you needed? He asked. She handed him the bundle. Some of it, she said. They stood there a second longer than needed, neither stepping back right away. Inside, she set the supplies on the table, moved around the room with a steadier rhythm now, not searching for where things were, knowing. Later, as the light faded, Nora walked into the back room. She knelt by her bag, opened it, folded the same cloth again. Slower this time, then stopped. Her hand rested on the worn leather handle. For a long moment, she didn't move. In the front room, Wyatt sat at the table, sharpening a small knife with slow, even strokes. The sound carried back to her. Steady, unrushed. Nora stood, carried the bag out, set it by the door. Wyatt looked up, didn't speak. She rested her hand on the handle. I'm not leaving, she said. The words came quiet, but they held. If that still stands. Wyatt didn't answer right away. He set the knife down, wiped the blade once on a cloth, then rose and crossed the room. Not fast, not slow either. He reached past her and opened the door. Evening light spilled in, soft and wide across the floor. The air carried the scent of wet earth and pine. He stepped back, leaving the doorway open. Nora looked out, then down at the bag. Then she nudged it aside with her foot. Left it where it was. The light stretched further into the room. Wyatt moved back to the table. Sat down. Said nothing. Nora closed the door halfway, not all the way. Just enough to hold the warmth. She turned back inside. The house felt different now. Not quiet in the same way. Not empty either. Outside, the ridge settled into night again. Inside, two people moved through the same space without needing to explain why. And that was enough. Now imagine it was you, standing out in that cold night with nowhere left to go. No door open, no name being called, no place that still felt like yours. And then one quiet voice doesn't ask who you were or what you've done. It just says, come home. Not as a promise, not as a rescue. Just a door left open. Sometimes that's all it takes. Not someone to fix your life, not someone to carry your burdens. Just someone willing to stand there, steady, and let you decide to stay. Nora didn't find safety because the world changed. She found it because one man didn't turn away, and because she chose, in her own time, to believe that she was worth staying for. And maybe that's the thing we forget. Home isn't always a place you're born into. Sometimes it's a place that slowly, quietly, chooses you back. If this story felt close to something in your own life, tell me where you're watching from or what part stayed with you the most. I'd really like to hear it. And if you're someone who believes in second chances, in quiet strength, in the kind of love that doesn't rush but doesn't leave, there are more stories waiting here for you. I'll see you in the next one.